Welcome to the Business Insight Set, a program organized by Forbes magazine to welcome business leaders, no matter where they come from or what they do, so they can tell us exactly what they do and, most importantly, what they want to do. So with us, we have a rather unique individual, Gustavo Antonio Montero. Hello, Gustavo.
Hello.
You are the president and founder of a company called Carter Capital, which specializes in the management of digital assets.
That's right, exactly.
What a story, and what a story you have.
Thank you.
Where are you from? You're from all over.
Well, I was born in Chile. My grandmothers were from Grenoble. But I've lived almost my entire life in Switzerland, in Geneva, and now for the last 10 years in Dubai.
So in Geneva, you were a banker?
I was a banker.
No doubt.
I was a banker.
Bankers grow.
I was a banker.
No doubt.
Yes, I managed a bank called Standard Chartered, a British bank. And after that, I was on the board of a small Swiss bank called Cramer, which is in Lugano.
And that's when you developed a passion for crypto.
Yes, in fact, I'm an engineer by background.
Digital assets?
Yes.
Yes, you got your MBA?
Yes, I'm an engineer, and after that I did.
Trained in US?
At the University of Detroit.
Dallas, quite a crowd there.
Exactly. But I think it's because I'm an engineer that over 10 years ago, I naturally got into digital assets.
Yes. Why? Is there a natural path? A natural connection?
No, I simply think that an engineer, by virtue of their training, is able to understand what digital assets are and how to work with them. That's not something everyone can do because it's very technological. Digital assets are technology. Of course, it's finance.
I don't know if it's technological, but it uses a lot of technology.
Yes, well, in fact, that's right. So it's normal, I think, for an engineer to get into it.
An independent and trusted digital asset management organization.
Totally independent, that's what you're saying.
What does that mean? Does it mean that the others are not?
No, it means that there are a whole series of companies in the digital asset world that may or may not be linked to their government or other entities, and so on.
Oh, really?
We are completely independent. So Carter Capital is a company, it's based in Dubai, and it manages digital assets in a completely independent way.
So in concrete terms, for someone who doesn't know the business well, how do you define your business?
We are wealth managers.
Yes, that's not difficult.
It's just that the goods, the assets, as we say, that we manage.
The assets
are digital assets. You see, when I was a banker, I managed assets like bonds, stocks, shares, things like that. And now we manage digital assets that have a value. So they all have a value. Those are the assets that we manage.
But what are digital assets? Is it crypto?
For example, crypto, everything that is digital images and so on. So it's a whole series of assets that, in our case, originally have a common technology called blockchain. It's this technology that generates these assets that
and that guarantee their value in a way.
Guarantee their value, but above all, the stability of each of these assets. Because it's complex, what we do is very technical, and so these assets are managed, they are originated by the blockchain, and then we can trade these assets. The blockchain is an IT system that allows us to accumulate the existence and the transfers of assets. Yes, it's what we call a protocol, right? Exactly, it's called a protocol, we call it a computer protocol. So these protocols, this computer protocol in the case of blockchain, allows for something that another computer protocol, for example, another database like Excel does not allow. In this case, it's the ability to transfer value from a database, the blockchain is a database, to another part of the same database. If you have a computer with the blockchain and I have a computer with the blockchain or a phone, I can transfer the value to you and you can transfer it to me. That can't be done.
So for the layman, though, I know there aren't many on Forbes, but the particularity of a digital asset is that it is not guaranteed by any institution.
Exactly. But the
dollar and the euro is guaranteed by a central bank, while a stock is guaranteed by the company that originally issued it. But a digital asset, on the other hand, is not guaranteed.
No, actually, it is guaranteed, but in a different way.
Explain that to us, because
we have to get into that. I'll try not to be too technical, but a central bank issues currency, money.
Yes.
For example, the European Central Bank or the Fed in the United States.
In exchange for typically or generally, for example, for debt, or
in exchange for nothing at the moment, because since 1971, Richard Nixon has cancelled, swept away gold, the gold standard, as it's called. This means that today, a central government can issue as much money as they want, whenever they want, at any time. This means, in fact, that it can create a huge amount of inflation and other types of problems, We know them.
On interest rates in particular.
The successive crises, including the subprime crisis, are crises that were originated by enormous creations of money by different central banks around the world. So unlike that, in digital assets, we can be very, very specific, for example. With Bitcoin, which is the currency everyone knows, because we have more than 20,000 currencies in the markets.
Yes, we know Bitcoin, we know the terms.
But Bitcoin, to relate it to what we were just saying, only has 21 million coins, 21 million currencies. They are digital.
Only, and that's it. It's finished.
You can't have more supply, more of it. So in fact, that makes it a non-inflationary currency, which has a whole series of characteristics that are very good for the investor. But above all, and here you've hit on the central point, indeed, it is not managed by a government. And who manages it? Who controls Bitcoin, for example? Each user. Okay? Each user controls their part of this digital currency. And every person who has a computer and is present in this, what we call blockchain. So it's a huge protocol that can accommodate all these currencies.
But today, at the end of this year, we are seeing more of a downward trend regarding crypto. So we have the feeling that all the crypto holders, are selling or are looking to sell to get liquid, maybe to cover other accounts.
That's a very good question, actually. We are buying.
You are a buyer?
Yes, completely. And other companies like ours are buyers because we understand the fundamentals of blockchain and Bitcoin. The fundamentals have not changed. They are very good, very strong, very solid. And we are certain that probably at the beginning of next year, there will be a rise in the value of these types of currencies. I'm talking about solid cryptocurrencies. Not all of them, there are 20,000.
So for the client, you are buying today?
Yes, and for us too.
Otherwise, for the client, what service do you offer alongside that?
We offer a return, which in our case...
You manage their portfolio?
Yes, we manage an electronic portfolio, what we call a wallet, okay? So we have a monthly return target of 10%. We don't get it all the time, but that's the target. And that's much more significant in terms of returns than what I could offer back when I was a banker. As a banker, I would offer 3%, 4% per year.
Now 3-4%.
So we say our target is 10%. We've been around for years. We have a track record and all that. So that's it. We offer the management of a portion of someone's or an institution's assets in the digital space with a return that is consistent and material, I would say.
But do you also offer capital gains?
The capital gains are the 10% I just told you about.
The 10%, that includes capital gains?
Of course. So, in fact, this type of service is a service offered by certain companies in the world, including ours. The difference with us is that we are what's called non-custodial, meaning we never have our clients' money in our own account. The clients keep the money in their account, meaning there is a complete separation between the balance sheet.
That's the logic of crypto, isn't it?
Yes. No, not all of them, because there are companies that take the crypto onto their books. Centralization, decentralization, that's an important parallel subject. Decentralization actually means that these currencies are not issued by a central bank and that they are controlled by everyone.
How do you see the future of cryptocurrency?
That's a very good question.
How do you see the future? Because everyone is pouncing on it. In fact, generally speaking today, politicians in particular.
Yes, it's between technical and between... to understand the future of cryptocurrency, you have to understand what's happening with the world's population. We have a few billion inhabitants on this planet, right? 60% of the inhabitants of this planet are under 40 years old. That's the average age, you see. There are places that are very old, like Europe or the United States.
Yes.
Okay, like us. But the reality is that, for example, in Angola, I think the average age of the population is 16, I think.
Take the entire African continent.
There you go. So if you take everything, you arrive at an average population age of under 40. Why am I telling you this? Because if people are under 40, they grew up with cryptocurrency, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and a whole series of elements.
It's the culture.
Technical.
Culture.
Exactly. Who basically say that they only want to work with cryptocurrency. So the new generation arriving in the next 5 years, there will be a transfer of ownership of monetary value of more than 40% of the total value of this world, which is $100 trillion. Out of that, there will be more than 30 trillion. I don't know how to say that in French.
Billions?
That will be transferred to the new generation. Why? Because it's people like me who are going to retire and pass the money on to them. What's happening in the next 5 years is huge. So this new generation obviously will invest in crypto. When you ask me how I see the future, it's fabulous.
Yes, but the crypto stock is now closed.
No, that's one currency called Bitcoin. There are other stocks of crypto in the world. In the world, there are about, in my very, very humble opinion, there are about 20 currencies that are very solid. Very solid. 20 cryptocurrencies. Okay. It's to these 20 currencies that all these new investors will turn. But I wanted to make a point about that which is important. In today's world, in the world of fiat money, as they say, meaning the money written and issued by central banks, there are more than 150 currencies issued in the world by central banks. 150. How many do we use? 10, maybe?
Not even.
Not even, no. The euro, the dollar, the pound sterling, and so on. Well, I think that in time we'll have the same thing with crypto. We'll use about 10 currencies, which is equivalent to fiat money today. It's a very interesting parallel world because the digital currency or crypto is growing by more than 20% per year. That's the current growth. So in fact, in a few years, you'll have about half of this world working with fiat money issued by central banks and the other half with crypto money.
A question that will seem trivial to you, but it's a very common journalist question. What do you say to all those who question the credibility of a crypto, its morality, or who also assume that crypto can be used for purposes, since it's not regulated, that it can allow anything, you know?
I'll answer very simply. You're talking about fraud.
Fraud?
Money laundering. These things have existed for some time.
Oh yes, 2 or 3 billion.
And money laundering was done with fiat currency.
Yes.
80%, 90% of money laundering from fraud is done with dollars or euros.
True?
That's my answer. So in fact, it seems like a perfectly valid question. Why not ask it?
You have to reassure people.
But you have to understand where the fraud is. It happens with physical money, with cash, with dollars or euros. You just have to read on the internet. There's a lot of information about that.
Yes, but I'm asking you this question because the value of a currency or the value of an asset depends on the trust you place in its issuer and
100%, 100%, 100%.
no reason.
So what is the value and the trust today in the issuance of dollars or euros?
Oh, well.
From countries and from places that are bankrupt, technically bankrupt, you know? If you look at the debt of the United States,
Yes.
if you look at Europe's debt, they are technically bankrupt. So why do we keep doing it? Because we have no choice. But do we trust a currency issued by the central banks of these places? No, not at all. Okay.
Yes. What is the next life for crypto? Is it the emergence of new cryptos?
No, I don't think so. It's the opposite. I think the next life for crypto is the cleanup. A part of that is happening now with the crisis that crypto is experiencing today in terms of value. It's only at the value level, all the fundamentals are there. I think we're going to clean up the market.
Yes.
I hope we end up with a dozen solid currencies that have existed for years, are very strong, and will remain the main currencies.
I'm asking you that question because I saw that you were going to teach or are already teaching crypto.
Yes.
No, what is it? Is it at the University of Dubai?
Yeah, it's a parallel life that I have. In fact, apart from managing and being the founder of my companies, I am a professor at the Canadian University of Dubai. So what do I do there? I manage the incubator. So I create companies for the students.
Who want to create?
Yes, especially in the final year. You have incubators in France too and in other countries around the world. So it's the first incubator in Dubai at that level. I must say that the Canadian University of Dubai was named the #1 university in Dubai for the 5th consecutive year this year. So it's solid. And here, allow me to do a little advertising for the founders of the Canadian University of Dubai, Dr. Karim Chelli. He's an extraordinary man with a huge vision who created this university from nothing. And now there are more than 3,000 students and it's located in the middle of the city. It's as if here you had a university in La Défense. Physically, it's in the middle of the city.
Like the Sorbonne. Exactly.
It's fabulous. So in fact, I've been teaching since...
You seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, but that's what I like the most, transferring information to the new generation. So I don't teach crypto, I teach business creation.
And do your students know that behind that you have a main activity that makes you the king of crypto? No, not at all.
Not the king, no, but I am humbly one of the people who understand what is happening. There, let's just put it that way. So I am going to have the graduation of my first 4 companies from the incubator.
Yes.
So one of the companies is called Trust Paper. It's a fabulous company.
Trust Paper?
Trust Paper. That has found a technology that includes blockchain and so on, but other things as well, which allows you to keep a document that has been issued valid forever with no possibility of changing it. The company is called Trust Paper, and it's fabulous. Ask me if you want to know a little more about it. I think it can become a unicorn. And it's one of the companies that is graduating this year in 2 weeks.
Bravo.
So thank you for the interview. Thank you for everything.
Well done. Do you have a website?
To find out more, cartercapital.io.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.